All right. I had someone else's AirPods in my house, so it wasn't not exactly work well. All right. So we are going to make a slight shift today as I want to put two things together. We are finalizing our Marketing Center buyers presentation for you. So we'll be doing a bonus session that will be an hour long on going through our new buyers presentation, talking about how to use it on an iPad and everything else. So for the sake of today, getting buyers agreements that convert, I want to put two concepts together for you today, right? So this might sound a little complicated for some, more streamlined for others, but the whole point of this is understanding how to build one sales process, right? And learn it one time. What is the purpose? And this can be a little more interactive today. I'm going to ask Cherish. Cherish, what is the purpose of the Med-C?
To uncover the 4 drivers of human behavior.
Exactly. Now, and also you build rapport, you build trust, and like you cut through all the BS and you get right to the point, right? I see Corey nodding his head. It works all the time. Now, here's the next part that's really important. Being a great salesperson is understanding how to take data and make future decisions off of it, right? Meaning, when they say things to me in their Med-C, how do I bring them into the buyer consultation? Who here has those kinds of questions? I think many of us do, right? Is anyone clear on how they bring it up in the consultation? Anyone have an example? And thus, I feel like a genius today because I'm onto something, right? So Gretchen, the Coley group, we role play with them pretty much 2 or 3 times a month. It's a group of 20 of them, and they kind of just keep going through, learning the same stuff you are, right? And so we've graduated from the Med-C, and the thing that we really have gotten present to is I'm hearing them do it, right? And it's like there's 2 things that you really want to focus on out of their Med-C, right? The motivations, the disappointments, and the concerns, right, are the parts that, one, get them to say, hey, he or she is good for me. They're really interested in like my goals and everything else. The second part, the disappointments and concerns, build that rapport and trust, right? Does that make sense, everybody? Now, the expectations are something you want to listen to, and as you're having your consultation, use it as a frame. The second is, and write this all down if you don't use it, after you Med-C somebody, especially a buyer, you ask them this question and do not change a single word. What do you envision an agent doing for you that you feel you can't do yourself? The more high-end the client, some people it's like, what do you envision an agent doing for you that you can't do on your own? Well, that is borderline, it can be competitive, right? Corey, imagine asking that to somebody in New York City, dude, you're gonna turn it into a boxing match, right? Like it's gonna be something completely different, right? So when you start thinking about this, how do we set ourselves up for long-term success, right? So if they said the expectation of an agent was that they were able to, who's done a Med-C with a buyer lately? Anybody? Jessica, you got to make sure your microphone's good.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I have done a Med-C, and it kind of just didn't. I did the Med-C, and then I tried to I noticed and that's actually one of my questions. When I did kind of ask something like that, and he just looked at me like I had 2 heads, and I was just like, okay, so this is where
well, how did you? Well, all right. So ready? That's a whole different conversation. One, you have to frame the conversation correctly, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't frame the conversation, it's like, hey, what do you like? They're gonna be like, wait, this is just weird, right? Like it's the same thing. So, all right. So I'm gonna come back to you.
Yes, please do.
Okay. Cherish. All right. When you did a Med-C, give me a real life expectations of an agent.
Actually, this is a good one. I'm glad we're doing this. So one of the expectations was that the agent they use know about all the school systems and the different options between private, charter, and public. And to me, one, it would be irresponsible to give that type of information. And secondly, for the price point of this client, because they were coming in as an out-of-state transfer, it seemed totally appropriate to hook them up with an education consultant, which we have here, and I was happy to pay for. So I brought that up, but I didn't address the expectation that she thought the realtor should have this information. And we have like public data and resources, but I don't think my perception was that that wasn't sufficient enough for her needs and the desire for specific education criteria for her kids.
Well, look, listen here, a couple different things, right? That was not the answer I was looking for, and I'll give a different answer. But it's a valid point. Like, look, when you're looking at music, right? You can either create music or you could be a DJ, right? A DJ is playing everyone else's music, right? So coordinating this stuff, it's also a fair housing violation to get into school. By the way, I just have to say this, since it's our own little circle. It's so stupid that you can't talk about schools, right? Like, it's like, this is not 1950s. There's not like Jim Crow laws. Like, there's not railroading and steering going. Like, it's just crazy. It's like the world has not evolved, right? So when they said that, understand the difference. What's like my area is lifestyle stuff. So what specifically you're looking for, so I can make sure to put you in touch with the right people, right? So like when people generally talk about expectations of an agent, wouldn't you say, and a lot of it comes to search and how they support search, right? Like an agent will help me find properties, off-market properties, right? And everything else.
And negotiating the contract
And negotiating
the terms.
I would hope people don't steer people based on race, religion, color, anything like that. It's sad. But I won't start a political rabbit hole here today. So, so when you start talking about that, right? So you go through the Med C, you go through what you envision an agent doing, right? And essentially, they've created the gap, right? So now you start going into a needs analysis for them, right? Now, when you go in the needs analysis, how would you start a needs analysis? So what are you looking for in a home and everything else like that, right? Well, if they're saying that the expectation is, I would say if I was a buyer, my expectation is that an agent would find properties that fit my need, that I don't have to look around myself on the internet. And if you're not doing that, make sure you are, right? As Michael said, with his client he shared recently, it was a collaboration of both of them, right? So there are a couple things that you need to identify in a great buyer consultation. That number one, that look, as you shared, it's really important to you that an expectation you had was that an agent filter properties based on your unique needs. So would it be okay is when we go through what we call the needs and lifestyle analysis section, that we ask you a series of questions which essentially will create a series of filters that will put each house through, as well as giving specific comments and context around why or why not we might feel a house is good for you. And they're going to say, yeah, that'll be great, right? But again, what are you doing? You're reinforcing the expectation, right? Negotiation. You can talk about negotiation. Hey, we're going to go through like how we craft a winning offer in today's market. There's blah, 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 different factors, right? You can go to our multiple offer template. Right? You had said this is important to. So you're reintroducing the Med C in different parts as you go through the presentation. Does that make sense to everybody? Because if not, how are you really using the information? Right, like this is a big concept for many of us. Does anyone have questions about this? I don't know why, but I don't believe all of you did. that everyone get this.
I mean, so I think many of us probably watched Gretchen Coley a couple weeks ago do her Med C, and flawless, right? And I think she's probably doing exactly what you're saying and lacing through the Med C, using it as a frame to go through the rest of the process. But
we're just starting this process with our team, so don't think we're just starting going through this with people, right? Because I'm sitting here looking at this, hearing these role plays. I'm like, wait a second. The whole point of data is to be able to make future decisions off it. So how are you making decisions in this consultation, right?
Right.
The other part, do you know in the needs analysis and lifestyle analysis, you generally talk about search during that point? One thing that you want to highlight and make it crystal clear is, look, you've shared 14, 10, 12 different filters, right? So I'll use myself as an example here today, right? If I was buying a house today, right? Number one, I'd want the house to be 5,000 or more square feet. I'd want a house that had 2 home offices, right? Even though I don't really like, unless my life circumstances relegates me to being in my house or something specific, I like to go to an office, right? But if I have to take a call, like I want a professional setting, right? I want first floor 10-foot ceilings, ideally in main living spaces, high vaulted ceilings, right? I want a backyard that's covered in trees and does not have a neighbor anywhere near me. Ideally, I'd like a pool, an outdoor kitchen, right? Here's my wish list of stuff, right? I don't want to be on a certain side where I'm more than 5 to 7 minutes away from a highway. I don't want to be more than 12 to 15 minutes away from my office, right? My kids go to a particular school district and they live in a different house half the time. So I have to be close to that, right? I like open spaces. Both myself and my partner love clothes and shoes. So we need an extreme amount of closet space. We need a guest room. Ideally, I'd like a finished basement with 9 or 10-foot ceilings, right? In terms of like the community, I'm happy where I live, right? So I want to stay within certain areas. Ideally on a cul-de-sac. I don't want to be on a double yellow line road, right? So there's an agent that I've spoken to, I worked with, and like every single place that whether I find it on my own, she can literally, yeah, that'll be good, but no, you don't even waste your time. Shrug it. It's this, and this. You'll never go for. That's an agent. But here's the flip side. You need to train your clients to understand that finding the properties is not the only point in your job. So does anyone have a clever way of saying that to somebody? Anybody? There has to be somebody. Someone at least try.
I can try.
Okay, perfect.
It's Andrea Schenk. So the easiest part of my job is actually finding you the property. Once we're in escrow, that's when my job really begins.
Okay, so here's my first question to you, right? What is the purpose of the statement that you gave?
To let them know that I'm not like a dine and dash. As soon as we get in escrow, that's the last time you'll see me. That's the first thing. And because especially now, if we're in that conversation of why are you getting paid so much? The fun part is looking for and looking at pretty houses, going to an open house or doing a showing. That's not the hard part. The hard part is once we start writing an offer, negotiating, and then in California, we have an escrow. We don't hand it over to attorneys. We actually work. So like through the whole way. I don't know the rest of the country, but so that the purpose of my conveying that is so that the buyer knows that and understands it.
All right, great. So can I be brutally honest with you now?
No, because my mother used to say that frickin' term, my mother-in-law, and I can't stand it. Choose another term.
All right. I like you. You got the New York spunk to you.
I
All
do.
right, so can I give you some
do.
constructive? I like it. Don't feel. I like this stuff, right? The more direct you are with me, the more direct I can be with you. All right, so here's a framework that I suggest that all of us can look at based on what she says, right? Selling is not telling, right? And so the purpose of this is I would turn around and like say, Andrew, you know, you have many years of life experiences and goals and expectations that it's impossible for us to cover during this time together. So just know that as much information as you give us, we'll put the properties through the filters, but it's also very common for our clients to collaborate and suggest properties as well, because that's just one part of the process, right? So, you know, we'll go through 3 distinct parts. Before is kind of a strategy and making a plan, right? During is the execution of the plan. And then after is a contract sign. And that we find is really the most important part, is that it's getting you to the closing table and all the small steps. And I'd love to share with you, if it's okay, how we can support you throughout reaching your goals throughout the process. Right. So you add a lot of value. What market are you in?
Los Angeles West Side.
Perfect. And is understanding the differences and nuances in your local market complicated?
It depends upon what, you know, everybody's subjective needs are, but it can be, yeah.
Exactly. So don't like when you did your dine and dash part, right? Finding a house in many markets in the country is not even easy, let alone a house that fits somebody's unique home needs, their lifestyle needs, and kind of the way you frame this whole conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the purpose of this part of it is to get them to understand that like the part that I really like put in there that I wanted the person to realize is, yeah, you know what, Chirag's right. I have all of these years of life experiences that there's no way he can know about. So something might catch his eye that I didn't communicate, and there's no way that he can know. And that's not exactly the only thing I'm hiring him for. That's the objection that we're trying to reframe. And it creates a more collaborative environment for people. Right. And I think to Andrea's point, the contract to close is the number one opportunity that we all have in this industry. It is something that people put little to no emphasis on. None. Like zero. And literally, it's the last thing they remember. So her sentiment in the dine and dash is spot on. Because everyone wants to have these communication plans and stuff like that. The part that they need you the most is actually when they go into contract, especially non-attorney states, right? I can still remember when I learned what escrow agents did compared to like, I could say in my real estate childhood, I grew up in an attorney state. I actually worked in an attorney's office for almost a year as a real estate paralegal. And like I saw what the work was, but what the escrow agents do, y'all should get paid double the money. Because it is a lot of work, right? If you look at New York, Long Island, Connecticut, like essentially the tri-state area, most of it, you're literally writing a one-page offer. Like I remember my first time my brother bought a property in Florida, and we sat down with the realtor to write an offer, and like my ADD kicked in. I thought I was never leaving. I'm like, this is crazy, right? Like, how much work do you have to do just to write one offer, right? So I think understanding how, like the goal of today was to understand that now you're looking at the Med C. How do I reintroduce this throughout the whole process? And the other big thing is, how do I make sure that the people understand that finding the properties is based on their unique filters that they tell me about a home and lifestyle? So I encourage all of you to look at this, right? So when you have things that say, hey, we believe that people have 10 distinct factors, both in a home and a community what's the word I'm looking for? A home and a community that create their ideal lifestyle. And these are the 10 filters we put every house through. So would it be okay if we asked you a few questions? They're gonna say, yeah, that's great. So get your questions, get your stick. And then in the end, you're gonna say, look, these are the 10 filters that we're gonna put you through based on what you shared is most important to you today. But I also want us to be on the same page about one thing. And they're gonna be like, well, what's the one thing? You're gonna say, look, there's no way that I can account for all the years of life experiences. So, search is a collaboration. We put things through the filters. We make sure you save your time. Even if you find a property you like, we'll run them through the filters because we might know the area, different geographic proximity, things you shared that are important. But there's no way, Andrew, for me to account for all of your life experiences and what might really get you excited that we don't know anything about. And every person's like that completely makes sense.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
right? So what were those words I said to you again? Where you're like, please don't say that to me?
Can I be brutally honest, except for the mother-in-law
Okay, perfect.
whose birthday would have been today, actually. She didn't say, can I be? You asked permission.
No, okay. So here's another thing that I can share with you, right? If you say things like I'm your advocate and any of these other things, these stupid things that people say of what they do, you could like literally hit like a landmine,
How
right?
so?
So
How so?
if because like this is an experience you had, right? So obviously you felt comfortable enough to sharing how that is, but in most sales situations when you hit something like that, people are just like all the things that came along with those memories now are like the person like sees it, right? Like I ask permission because I don't ever want to say, all right, I'm going to be brutally honest with you, because then your perception of me would change.
Yeah.
So always asking questions, right? So look, words have powerful meanings, right? So if somebody grew up with a set of experiences where they felt like they didn't have a voice or they couldn't talk for themselves or people spoke for them, and then you tell them you're going to be their advocate, it's going to be like this. Boom. So that's why we choose these words very carefully. Like if you go to that magic question, what do you envision an agent doing for you that you feel you can't do yourself? You get the wrong personality type, and that conversation goes sideways quick. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, but it's and it's just bad, right? This should be streamlined, right? So just think about when you go places, right? How many people like to go to really nice restaurants, hotels, shopping? Raise your hand. Can I give you all a suggestion? Go through there and go to a place you don't go and just start asking them questions and see how they service you as a client and start pulling from the best of experiences. Like I remember last night, you want to talk about service, right? There's a local place here that's down the street from our house. You can order the food for takeout. It's great. It's ready in like 15 minutes. And it's just like this little bowl, right? It has filet mignon tips in it with some corn. So it's like a healthy meal. Like it's portion nice and everything else like that. So I called up the place and like one of us likes our food medium rare. The other one likes it well done. I had mentioned to the person that it was, please, last time it was still a little pink, please make it well done, right? So one, I thought I communicated it really clearly. I shared my past disappointment. I went there and got the food. The food was like a different cut of meat, right? Like I've eaten the food there all the time. So the food tasted differently and the well done was still pink. I called the manager up and I shared with him like kind of what happened. He was very short. He was very curt. He didn't say thank you for coming back here. He's like, I'll give you a refund. And so I asked him 3 times, like, how can I avoid this happening? Right. Like I told the person and everything, he couldn't even give me an answer. Right. So a simple of like, you know what, let me talk to the people that do takeout here and say, like, when it's well done or these orders come in, that they have some sort of like checking in or something else. Right. And this is how fast customer experience could go bad. Because now when I think about going there, I'm like, they don't really care. Right. So the words you use, the way you deal with feedback and everything else shows how you show up. So when you guys start thinking, not everyone is meant to be in customer service. Yeah, 100%. But we're in a service business, right? Not everyone's meant to be a manager because they have no emotional intelligence. So I wanted to bring in like real life experiences. It actually worked out really well that I didn't mean to trigger you, Andrea, so my apologies. Worked out well that we got to see a real life example of what this was like. And look at the tonality she used in that, right? Like it showed how that made her feel. So for today, 2 big concepts I want you to use going forward. Number 1, start listening through your Med C through the context of how am I going to use this later? Like when you document this down. The second part that you need to start doing on building out this buyer presentation is when you go through the needs and lifestyle analysis, be very purposeful, and then at the end, repeat back what they said and be like, these are the filters that we're going to put your house through. Now, you can show them examples at that point of your collections and how you collaborate with people using this process. And the last part that we really want to do today, and this is like the biggest part of this, right? Because if you can't find them a house and share how you're going to add value, the rest of the stuff you do, they're going to like tune out. Does that make sense? And so the other part is explaining to them there's no way you can account for all their life experiences. All right, we have a couple things in chat here. My partner went to a real estate attorney who charges $500 an hour. He went to a second attorney who charges $325 an hour. He hired the second attorney, and after spending $5,000, he's now back to the first one that spends $500. Yeah, it's true. I remember doing my commercial lease here, and my broker here had shared a few examples, but she's like, if you want the best attorney, this is who you go to, but he charges the most money. I said, great, I'm going to go to him. It's been just, the whole experience has been completely different. Very much a relationship-driven person. He's helped me out with more different things than I could ever imagine, but you get what you pay for in life, right? So we don't have to defend what we do. At the end, we just have to explain to the person the service that they're getting in exchange for what we're going to charge. That's it. So when Andrea really highlights all those little things she does, you can ask great closing questions, right? Like, is this the type of experience you're looking for? Is this the type of relationship you'd like to invest in when partnering with an agent, right? Do you think this will cause you less stress and streamline things so you can really focus on moving, because moving sucks? Make sense for everybody? All right, we have 2 minutes left. Anyone have questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, hallucinations, fears, doubts, worries?
Chirag, well, where does the buyer pitch book come in? I mean, usually we send it to the buyer, so we're not spending a lot of time kind of telling what we do. And I thought that was the purpose, but you tell me.
Look, part of the buyer's pitch book, right, is one, you can give it to them, right? Two, you can actually have them have it on a large iPad in front of them. Right? So they're hitting the button, they're swiping the page. Let them have control over it.
I've often felt and found that when I've sent in advance what you call a pitch book, they don't look at it. Yeah, I'll get to it later, and they often never do.
Well, can you get by that by saying,
right?
Can you ask them to come back to you with questions on the book so you know they've read it? No.
Oh yeah, I didn't have time to read it.
Well, if you were sending me the pitch book, what would it say?
Who you
I
asking?
typically.
Oh, got it.
If you're asking me, I typically don't send a buyer one. I only send a seller one.
So again, it all comes down in my mind on how you frame the conversation, right?
Okay.
Here, if I'm sending like my written marketing plan about me and everything else, I would say, hey, here's the way we partner with agents and the exact things we do for our clients. I encourage you to go through this so that we could spend our time together, specifically focusing about your unique situations and goals, and have our time together, have more context, something along those lines, right? So like, if I have to read something and invest into something, it has to be a direct benefit to me. Michael, if you want to practice, Cherish, can you reach out to Michael? Can you two connect? Join her accountability group. Ask anyone that wants to practice the Med-C. There are plenty of, you'll have no shortage of people. But look, this concept, I'll leave you with this thought. Framing is the context in which you share something prior to it. So framing a conversation means I want to explain something so it's in your benefit, your belief system, the way that you see the world, the way that you make decisions today, and then introduce a concept based on those same things. So when I know by reading your pitch book that the conversation is going to be all about me and my situation, my goals, right? Like you're saying that I want to make this about you and your situation and goals unique. It's the only thing I care about. So here's a way to review all the general information in advance about myself, my company. And literally we've had clients say like, we don't want to spend time talking about ourselves on when we have our time together, because like you're making a big decision in our life. We want to understand your goals, your expectations, your unique situation, and have a conversation on how we can support you based on that. People are like, oh, that sounds great, because most agents don't say that. They hear, oh, you want to hire me, sell, 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 sell. This is what I do. This is what I do. This is what I do. And that's where the disconnect starts, in my opinion. So here's where we are. I have made more revisions to this pitch book than I care to admit in public. So I am far behind my deadline, because I'm like obsessive in getting this right. And every time they seem to change stuff with these rulings and opinions, and there's a lot that's gone into this. So once we have it, we will do an hour-long session with all of you and show you how to use it. Sound good?
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. You know, look, going through the whole buying process, what you all need to think about is, Danielle, what's the difference between free and a client? That's the big thing, right? So here's an exercise for all of you to do. Here's what you get as a lead or someone who's curious about my service, and here's all the things that you get when you buy my service. You can't offer everyone everything. Also, you don't think like collections, and when you put that whole search together in comments, that should be something that you invest time in when someone agrees to pay you money. All right, everybody, this could, we can one day just have like an open dialogue conversation. I think that'd be fun to just kind of see where this all goes. And Leslie, I'll go back to this. It's really like breaks my heart that people still do this stuff. It's just, it's the most, honestly, it's the stupidest and most ridiculous thing in the world. And it's really unfortunate in this industry that a few bad people make all of us that really care look bad and not really able to help people. Right? I know that where I live, there's 5 different elementary school systems, and like someone that's lived here and sold real estate here for 30 years actually could help me. Andrew, you're welcome. You're all welcome. I'm here for you. So the more stuff you share, the more information you give, the more I can do to support you. So we have our buyer presentation going. We also, in the background, are working on the AI app and getting our first like little mastermind, because we want to build what you want, not what we've imagined in our head. So stay tuned. We'll have details out for that in our end of week newsletter. Bye, everybody. Happy Tuesday.